Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Beyond Eyes. So, potentially we're halfway through the game, probably we're only a third of the way through the game. Um, we're playing as a blind girl who walks incredibly slow and is seemingly more agoraphobic than just blind. She's looking for a cat she hasn't seen in over at least a season, and she's wandering a picturesque villa looking for it. And as far as I can tell, the game itself really does just evolve around the idea of you need to get to from point A to point B, and kind of at that finalization of that point you might run into a sequence that there's like a barking dog that scares you, which frankly, even as a blind girl, she's a little too old to be just terrified by crows and barking dogs. And it does certainly seem like this is just going to end up with me wandering as quickly as possible. And I think that's really where this is going to boil down to, is that we are going to try and wander as quickly as possible to the final location. Of course, we might actually find out that there's a cat. I saw a box over there, so I bet that's a final location, and there's a cat with kittens there, and that may be Nani, the cat she's talking about, or it might be a completely different cat. We do know that the cat had a bell, and we do know that she imagines things, and then they often turn out to be different things. Nani loved to eat fish. Ray was certain he would have come this way. Now we have some ducks, which, this was before the release of Untitled Goose Game. Well, he plays a duck and they are very annoying. Once again, ducks are a pain in the butt, sure, but I would also make a decent argument that there's not really a good reason to not at least try and shoo the ducks away first before having to turn around and walk in a completely different direction. Now, see, this is weird. We kind of started this chapter here, and I'm just exposing more of the world. Remember, this character is blind. It kind of feels like they should have, how is she supposed to have known that there was a statue here of an old fisher and a dog? This also feels very Japanese inspired. Apparently we're supposed to go this way where the bird is tweeting. Maybe there is some technology in this that is pointing towards the right direction, but I would imagine it's probably just hard-coded sound effects. Yeah, you could have the character, I guess, stumble and fall down a little bit more often, but honestly, if you're gonna have a blind character, you kind of at a certain point just need to make them a X-Men like character with super powers that just counter that. Or at least you make them an extremely capable blind person and not a child who doesn't have a walking cane or any coping mechanisms of any sorts. probably not really worth it to walk here and just reveal that there is a wall. And see, I don't know if this game were to unlock like a unblind mode and you could just run around the world, and a fast movement mode and you could run around the world, if there's even that much to really see, because the repetition has gotten fairly high at this point. There's not a ton of new stuff that we're seeing. Just they didn't even bother to animate the cars when we got to the crosswalk. And we can't open the door. And I don't think we can open the other door. So, what was the point of that? Yeah, you kind of have a character here you want to see succeed. You want to see them become more successful. Yes, she's hearing a car, but as I continue to walk, the car might not actually be a car. Well, it was a car, it was just a different kind of car. Interesting, they're reusing the same gimmicks.
Nani.
There's clearly too many like adult men walking around that either are paying absolutely no attention to this blind girl, or are just ignoring her completely. But I don't think there's a slice of life story here. It's kind of hard to relate because, let's face it, the number of video game players that are blind that would be playing this are zero. It's just not gonna happen. This is far too visual a game. This isn't going to have me really relating to blind people because I'm gonna think they have magical echolocation powers, which they just don't. Like, this is teaching the wrong lesson to sighted people, in the sense that it's saying that blindness is not as big of a deal as it is. And we've got all these like smells, and I guess that's what they're trying to indicate here, is that we are walking down a path smelling fish or something. At a certain point, it becomes the question about, should you just be playing as a cat? Wouldn't that make more sense? Because then you could potentially make the argument that cats have a very short-sighted ability and they can't see in long distances. I don't believe that to be the truth at all, but it's possible that there is some cat. A smell of fresh bread gave Ray an idea. She's gonna get bread to feed to the ducks to get them to leave her alone, I guess. And so she's just basically stealing bread. Like, I'm right here. Is she about to get backed over by a truck? Like, I mean, inevitably, that's what's being foreshadowed here, is that she is about to get run over by a car, and that's why we're seeing so many cars. And there's just a ton of dead ends that are blocking paths. Yeah, best I can figure, this is intended to be kind of like a maze game. And you're supposed to be unable to see the ways through the maze. And last time we dealt with a dog, we just backed away from it slowly. Once again, there's a decent chance here we don't even need to walk towards the dog. So it looks like there's a fence. And a tree. I'm seeing that there's kind of an inherent logic to this, to the idea of walking on the pathways, because you keep bumping into other things otherwise. And I imagine that's exactly what would happen if, for a blind person, is that they would learn quickly to stand on the grass and or stand on the street paths, or at least know where they're standing. So you just get little bits of color of whatever you manage to color by walking near before, and I'm just looking for a shortcut. And I guess the shortcut's down this direction.
Nani?
So we have this bread, and I don't know if she's slowly eating the bread. I don't think that's the idea. I think the idea is that she's going to use it. And it's just totally not worth your time. Like here you have a newspaper vendor. Like, we know that she's not kind of ignored in this world or anything, so because the girl talked to her. And seems like you can't get any closer to that guy. He's just a fruit vendor. Of course, again, how does the blind girl know that is what he's selling? And there's a dumpster right next to his stand, so yeah, I think I just got lured into an area that was not an unnecessary area. And I think that happens more often than it seems. I think you do end up running into a lot of little sections that would make sense, but if you were sighted, you could check them out. Suppose you could make a slight argument that this is an attempt for the game creators, who I don't believe have created any other game, to make kind of a condemnation on the fact that there are probably a lot of levels in 3D environments that are developed in video games and people just run right through them and they just don't care about what's going on, or they don't take the time to look around and smell the roses, as it were. And in all fairness, that is true, that there are definitely instances like that. So here's another bread that apparently we could have potentially gotten. I guess through here might be the next little step. You really just have no idea, though. No clue which way is which.
Nani?
But since we have a challenge over here with the ducks, I imagine this was supposed to be in part of the solution. Seagulls flocked around the bread, gobbling it up greedily. Which, okay, fine. Thanks for telling me that, but that was hardly a process where I picked up the bread and threw it in a specific direction to make them go in a specific direction. Wasn't this gate open? I swear that gate was open. Alright, so the game is cheating us a little bit here. It's checkpointing us and pointing us in specific directions. And I guess we'll have to take that to know that that's what they intended to have happen. Well, here's something we can interact with. Picking up a flower, smelling it, maybe tossing it into the river. But why is she looking down? Like, is she blind or is she not blind? This would be the ultimate twist, I guess, as if the game is, oh no, she actually isn't blind, she was blinded temporarily, and that was that. And now it's raining. And I feel like perhaps the rain is supposed to be the indicator that would let you pass this area. But no, you're gonna need something else. There's just kind of no telling, though, where an area would reset. That's just a car blocking the way, and this really does feel like a game that would have been benefited heavily by just the ability to double speed it, like old games used to be able to turn your computer into turbo mode and just have the game run twice as long. Unless I'm just supposed to naively climb into the back of a car. Is the rain supposed to be an indicator of something? I guess the only thing we can try and do is follow the sound effects and just wander around. And so him whistling, which we've seen a man whistle several times. So I wonder if the whistling man is the secret, is the father that's just watching her and letting her have her own adventure. That would be an interesting twist, but then the whistling man would have to have been a more important character that we would have seen further and further down the path. Yeah, if this was kind of like a Curious George type experience, or what is the one with the baby's day out. Interesting. We have either a table or a wall. Seems like there's a whole bunch of tables. I hear the slight rumble of a car. So it does definitely feel like things change. That we have been in this area before. But the game is still very much suffering from a lack of real 3D directionality in the sound effects. So it's getting fairly impossible to fully know which direction something is or which direction the next bird chirp is that's you're supposed to follow. And I guess the idea here is that maybe nature is guiding your way, whether that's intentional or not. It almost gets to the point of like a fairy tale, though, where she's Snow White and not Snow White, Cinderella, and she's got all these birds magically helping her. The markings here probably look like they've been re-added because it's not realistic that I walked down this path and it revealed only parts of this. So they've marked it a second time. And we've got the music. This is kind of a great example. If you were trying to find a specific door, you would really have to work hard to know which building, which business you're going to. How many steps, how many paces from the left turn. And see, that was blocked. So now we've hit some kind of grade A BS where there's no way to even walk back. We're just totally in the wrong place from the sounds of it. From the looks of it. See, there's no way that white line would have respawned or would have been there originally. So like, yes, there's a bird. It's tweeting. Yes, there's a door here. Can't do anything with it. Is there possibly anything that I'm missing? No, it's just that the memory fog seems to reset fairly often. And things are now changing to the point where it does just feel like they're wasting your time. Yeah, this definitely feels like they're just wasting your time and stretching this out. Which really makes me hope that there really is only like 5 chapters and not potentially 10 chapters. Because there's really no reason why you would want to do 5 more chapters of this. There's just nothing happening. This would have been a brisk 1 hour experience if they had made it a brisk 1 hour experience, and I feel like that probably would have been the better path to take and better design to take. Make this kind of like a tech demo for the next game. Promise a whole bunch more action or a whole bunch more story or a whole bunch more of something. If I was to compare this to a point and click adventure, which it definitely is not that, you do run into the problem of this having the exact issue that so many old point and click adventures had, which is that the character walked too slowly, and because of that you very often would end up annoyed by the pace of the game. On top of that, it has the secondary problem of the game just being not linear enough. Okay. So maybe we were supposed to take the long way around to get past the ducks. And then we heard some branches fall over. And then automatically we picked those up. And it turned out to actually be an umbrella, not a bunch of branches, which means she's now holding somebody's umbrella and just walked off with it. Like, there wasn't just an umbrella open sitting on the side. So we accomplished that chapter by literally stealing somebody's umbrella. Which, alright, fair enough. And now it seems like we are walking on a boardwalk. So we've gone from the villa, from the garden to the villa, to the boardwalk. And so now we're... I hear a cat. Ray was beginning to lose hope until she heard a familiar sound. Still don't believe
Nani?
this will be Nani.
Nani!
She should have lost hope a long time ago.
Nani!
Like an entire season ago when it didn't come back. So I was figuring this blind girl would probably get hit by a car wandering around. Now I'm figuring she's going to get
No.
thrown into the ocean. Being blind, she's going to just walk off a pier. Take a long walk off a short pier is the old insult. And we're just going to have to walk all over the place to see where the path is. But you shouldn't be able to see any of it at all. In all fairness, this would be a hyper annoying game if it was just all a bright white area and you played as a blind person. Like, people wouldn't have found that satisfactory. And I have half a thought that was their original concept, is that this was just going to be a game where you were playing in complete blind empty space, and they couldn't get away with that, and they realized that in playtesting that they wouldn't be able to get away with that. I think it's worth mentioning too, she is very custom designed in her outfit. She found an umbrella. She was wearing what I want to describe as Wellington boots, or at least mud boots. Theoretically, this whole journey has gone over the course of at least 4 seasons. And there is, I guess, a point where you could have had this break up and she could have searched one area for the cat and then gotten tired and then like gone home and slept, and then the next weekend she searched for the cat again. She could have found little bits of clues that indicate where the cat went. Knowing Nani was close, Robbie braved the storm. And honestly, if I just walk her into the ocean and she drowns, and that's just like the bad game over, I kinda don't care. That I'll take that as the ending of the game. See, we're on a beach. We're walking in kind of a diagonal direction. You can't really just stop somewhere and spin around trying to hear sound effects. It's like, it feels like there should be a ping ability, and since I don't have that ping ability to say, hey, which way is the direction that is closest to the next important point on the map, you can just be in the center and not really have a clue where to go. The music that plays in the background tries to set a mood and a tone, but since there really is no mood or tone to the game in its general concept, it's hard to really take the background music too seriously. Honestly, even if this game wanted to be like a Sierra point-and-click text adventure, Sierra games actually weren't so much point-and-click adventures, that might be interesting. If she just accidentally died a lot and then it brought you back to a checkpoint, and they said this is not a violent game, nobody's supposed to die in this story, something along that line, you might be able to throw some comedy into it like the Sierra games, although maybe that comedy wouldn't really play too well with a blind girl. Can you walk down this? Nope, apparently not. Feel like I'm under a pier, which does feel like a place where a cat might hang out. Although I'm not sure how fond of salt water and the salt air a cat particularly would be. Probably fond enough to try and grab some fish, but I don't know if they'd be hanging out on the ships. See there, the music just cut out so that we get another whiff to indicate that's where the cat is. I guess the big irony here would turn out if the cat actually is a stuffed cat and this is all just the dreams and delusions of a bored blind girl. Well, I'm now going up. I hope I'm going the right way. Because it really didn't point me in a direction that would indicate that it was very much up. You still can't really look up. You can look down, but the camera only allows for a certain angle. And yeah, you just keep walking until you see a wall. Yeah, I don't understand how they... Apparently I found an ice cream shop. Like, I don't see how people would have thought that this would have been a great game. Are we on like a Ferris wheel? So is this a boardwalk fairground? So that's just going to act as a barrier, I guess. There's a game that I think is out now. It got quite a bit of like fanfare when it was first announced. I think it's called something like Little Miss or something like that, where it is a very young child with a French accent for no real reason, that is uh, that you're assigned as a agent of death to try and kill, and so you're constantly trying to put her in a path of danger, and it's done very comedically, and the idea is that she manages to, I guess, escape danger every time, and I imagine you won't manage to succeed in your goal of killing her even at the end of the game. I could see this world in this game being something like that, because there is that slight hint of danger.
Nani.
Honestly, one thought you could do here is you could have the underlying tone of there being danger as a blind girl is walking over, and if this was a shorter, like, paid for by, like, child social services game, you could have her just grabbed and thrown into a van by a child abductor at the end. Much like how there was this cell phone game called Dumb Ways to Die that was paid for by the Railway Safety Commission of one of the European countries. And it's a fairly good game with a very catchy YouTube video song that definitely was centered around the idea of not touching the electrified rails. So apparently this is a lock, and I'm supposed to walk through the lock. I think that's what these are called. A bridge, basically, for the boats to move through a channel. But you can probably tell there's not a lot to say about this game, in the fact that I'm mentioning so many other games, and each of those games had gameplay elements. Even Dumb Ways to Die had little mini games to play that were interesting for at least a brief 20 minutes or so.
Nani.
Rain settled and a familiar sound grew clearer. She really is just hearing cats and assuming they are her cats.
Nani.
Yeah. Filming a sound was quickly replaced with one Nani had never made. Yeah, because it's not her cat. Idiot. Hey. See how you've kind of run into this point where it's like, yeah, these cats, these aren't the cat you were looking for. You're an idiot, child. You're far too large for me to forgive this as just youthful ignorance. The idea that there's only one cat in the entire area is ridiculous. I thought for a second there we might actually find a cat that might be at the end of the game, in which we might have her. Hey, here's some train tracks we can walk on and get run over. Like, I think cats are like only pregnant for like 3 months or 4 months, so it would be very possible. It's just always very possible that any cat you're looking for went off and had kittens and is just taking care of its new family instead of playing with the blind girl. It's also very possible that they ran off and died. Right, so I guess I was not in risk of being hit by the railroad because there's an odd pedestrian gate. This almost feels like an homage to the beginning of The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. That being said, I think The Vanishing of Ethan Carter was a much better game than this.
Ah. Nani.
And like I kind of do want to just hit a point where she just falls and dies or gets found by her parents and they take her home, and that's just the end of it, because it doesn't really feel like there can be any other real resolution. We're just going to just have that happen. We might go full circle here and we might end up back in our back garden, and it might be a case that she was asleep / dreaming it all along and she never actually left her own back garden. Which, what does that really accomplish? It doesn't really accomplish anything. Unfortunately for this game, I don't think you're going to accomplish anything. The most complicated puzzle we've seen was the finding the ball and feeding bread to ducks, and I don't really feel like there should be yet another puzzle like that. I don't even know what that was showing me. Like, and considering how she's blind, it would have been really easy to force the character's camera to look at something else. Like, the only thing I can assume is that maybe I'm supposed to try and cross in between these two lines. But that would be, frankly, insane for a blind person to try and cross a stream. You have no idea how deep it is. You have no idea how wide it is. You maybe could, by audio, tell how fast the water is running, but without knowing how deep the water is, that doesn't help you much. I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know where the next path is. Feels like there should be a breadcrumb ability to turn my head in a specific direction and tell me, hey, this is the direction to go. Right, I see some ducks. Am I supposed to follow the ducks? Like, is there a real reason to follow the ducks? Yeah, honestly, there's about 40 minutes of entertainment here in something that's taking 2 hours. And yeah, there's perhaps a reoccurring theme of don't write a story based around a child, particularly a girl, which oddly it has been the last 3 games I've played. Has been The Little Acre, which is a point and click adventure that in part was based around a little girl, and then Home is Where One Starts, which was based around the memories of a little girl. Now we're playing Beyond Eyes, which is based around the story of a blind little girl. You just can't put this kind of character in danger. And there's a level of just sexism, benevolent sexism as it were, that still kind of exists, and in that you do kind of still want to not be in a situation where you're seeing females in particular getting put in danger. And you don't want to see kids in danger, so you've double whammied yourself. And without being able to put these kids in danger, then you have a limited type of story you can really have. And I don't think the Looney Tune concept of cartoon violence is embraced very often these days, so. Alright, I think I found the bridge.
Nani.
What's weird here is it just, I don't know what kind of game you would have had here without going really crazy. Like, since this is all happening in her imagination, she could run into the ducks and the crows, and then she could imagine herself a superhero, and you could go into like a turn-based RPG game, sure. But would that feel natural or make sense? No. It would give you something to do at the very least. This could be like a music game. It could be an adventure game where she's picking flowers. Like, and you know you're scraping the bottom of the barrel of ideas if you're suggesting a flower picking simulator. But that would still be a better experience than what we're experiencing right now. And see, if we know the crows are crowing at us, then we know we're probably going in the right direction. Then I see deep in this direction a waterfall, which I feel like that probably indicates that we're heading the right direction then. A whole bunch of wooden logs. Although it does kind of feel like we are just going to curve around the waterfall. This could have been like a bug collecting game, butterflies or bird watching game, something along that lines. But again, I don't know why or how you integrate that into being blind. There's some stepping stones here that we're gonna try and jump. How she knows they're there, I have no idea. Like, once again, she needs a cane. Like, it really does just imply that she's not really blind, or that she's only partially blind, which in all fairness, a lot of people are partially blind and still can make out general shapes and objects. That really wouldn't have been a big deal, frankly, if that's how this game was going to play, is that we were going to get just dark and light shapes to start with, and then maybe you'd have enough bug collecting or flower picking to happen where you start to improve your eyesight over the turn. Like, I could easily see fixing the two initial problems of the game with not being able to see anything and them walking slow by simply having two collectibles in the game that would speed up that the movement ability and the visual ability. That would be interesting. Even if you were going to not really even change anything visually, suddenly there it was, the unmistakable sound of the bell on Nani's collar, which we could potentially be walking into a pet cemetery, or she could just be hearing a different bell, which then would make it not the unmistakable sound of her collar. I don't know how you could have such a simplistic bell sound be unmistakable. Like, surely dozens upon dozens of cats and pets have bells around their neck that sound the same. Or once again in one of these paths that's oddly sidelined with wooden walls. Are they straight up giving us a puzzle at this point?
Nani?
Is this straight up a maze? It looks like it might be. But the problem with this is it's not like we've learned how to transition. She's still getting startled and knocked over by crows. And she is in a cemetery. Although having so many headstones next to each other is kind of ridiculous. And a pet cemetery would not have this many headstones. Although, I guess maybe if you were going to have a pet cemetery, maybe you would put all the headstones together. So it's her necklace on a tree, which is not confirmation that the cat died. She would have to be able to either feel the gravestone surprise to no one except for this kid. Hey, a cat was showing up on a regular basis. A season's gone by, you haven't seen them. The cat died. That happens. Cats live and die, and particularly strays, fairly short succession. And see, this just kind of feels like pathetic and trying to tug at your heartstrings and trying to be a story about loss, when really all it's left me with is just kind of hating the main character for her being slow and mentally slow and physically slow. And now are they gonna make me walk all the way home? Ray had finally realized that Nani was gone forever. Oh look, it seems like the whole world is now just disappearing. Good, so let's just walk directly to where this headstone was and see if we can walk through it. And I got an achievement called Closure. Memory of Ray and Nani Halato. In the short time together we taught me all the precious things of life and love, and seeing the world through her eyes, changing eyes. Sorry, didn't read it fast enough. Development team. One art director manager, and quite a lot of people worked on the art. I don't hate the art. I hate the gameplay. I don't particularly hate the level design, although it's hard to even tell on the level design. I kind of hate the audio because this was too ambitious a game for an indie company. They needed full 3D directional audio, and they needed a lot more audio samples and a lot more things that made audio sounds for this kind of idea. I kind of hate the programming in the fact that it was just super slow walking speed for no reason. Remember, this is supposed to be a girl. Sure, she's blind and that might make her a little bit slow, but she's also young, so you could have probably justifiably had her have the ability to run around a little bit more. You could have even given her a stamina meter like we've seen in later games like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, where your grip meter runs out after a certain time and you have to potentially build it up. I feel like all the QA people would have had to have told them that this was a boring game, even at 2 hours. And yeah, I get it. Sure, you may have loved your cat, but do you make a video game around that idea? You shouldn't. Like, you may put your cat in a video game, sure, but you don't focus your entire story around that. Maybe this would have hit cat people more than non-cat people. I like cats just fine. I don't have a like crazy hate for them or anything like that. I just am not obsessed with them or in love with them. And then here the ball is being thrown, and I guess her friend is going to come back. Either that or her friend is. So her friend was not trapped at school, but it does feel like the blind girl is not being given an education because she's being allowed to wander around. I think there is probably something to be said that there is rather fewer 3D models of characters that are of African skin tone that are made and purchasable. Even looking at her model, you can see it is fewer polygons than the main character. Look at kind of the shoulders of the girl on the left and, more her arms compared to the arms of the girl on the right. Something popped up on the screen, but it didn't happen. But I didn't happen to read it. They're really not giving you a lot of time there. So, yeah, there are 7, there's 6 chapters with a prologue and epilogue, which would be 8 chapters in a game that really should have been maybe 45 minutes. And again, like the walking simulator, home is where one starts. That could have been, this could have been a good, like, Act 1 if you got rid of a ton of wasted content and a ton of wasted time. And the first bit of story, as far as slice of lives and stories of growth, could be the blind girl realizing that the cat, who was a stray and not really her cat, although it wasn't really a stray because it belonged to somebody, they had a collar on it, died. So yeah, that's a fairly impactful this day in my life that was important to me story to tell. But then you probably at that point need to jump it up to her going to school and hanging out with this friend she made, and then the story should have continued as kind of a friendship. And if we really got to know this character and she had a voice and she actually spoke and had backstory and characterization, if we saw who her parents are, then we could relate to her a lot better. And so if then Act 2 was her like dealing with school, first day of school or something like that, and then Act 3 is through a lot of struggle. She's graduating from college, or she's going on a first date from college, and then Act 4 is like her wedding day, and Act 5 is like her getting having a child, and the difficulty of being blind and having a child would probably be tenfold. This really also, I would say, feels like a game that I'm not sure there was anybody that developed this game that actually knows anybody who's blind. I can't guarantee that that's the case, and it's not like I personally have a lot of experience with blind people, but just as a critic, I can kind of tell it feels like they just wanted the blindness to be a hindrance to their gameplay mechanic of simply slowing down the game and making it last longer. And see, the problem now, which wouldn't have been a problem in 2015, is that I probably have about 30 more seconds in which I could exit out of this game and do an automatic 2-hour gameplay refund on Steam. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people did something like that. Although, in all fairness, I don't think there's even a reason to play this game. It's no surprise that this was getting 5 out of 10s. It just wastes your time, is all it does. It's a pretty looking game, and I constantly get tricked by pretty looking games, at least in their screenshots. And then when I go and try and play them, they turn out to be fairly disappointing. And I will say, I think I also didn't listen to the Steam reviews for this game, which is something that I don't do anymore. I am very fastidious on making sure that a game has at least 20 to 30 reviews and that it is in the positive range with those reviews before I put a game on my wish list. And then I have to contend with, do I want to buy this specific game on my wish list versus the other 2 or 3,000 games that are on my wish list, some of which have been there a long time and some of which I've been brewing the concept and the desire to play. It's a shame. I think this concept of playing as a blind person can be handled better, and it doesn't always have to be a horror game. And I don't think the horror games where you play as a blind person are particularly even that much better. But nobody seems to have really figured it out. And I'm not sure that anybody is going to figure it out anytime soon. I don't think there's much else to say, so that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.